going back, I actually a couple weeks ago went to a course about this stuff. It's about 3 topics: self-love, self-care, and pleasure. And we talked about relationships. And I think I can. Yes, this is the right word. Sorry, I'm not. So one thing that we talked about was amatonormativity. This is what the way we are learned about seeing relationships, like a like love as being romantic, sexual, whatever, just with one person. And this is the way we miss out on the network we actually have. So on that course, we actually made a really quick exercise about thinking the kinds of relationships we have in our network, like intimate, someone that we share emotional intimacy, there's emotional support, there's work relationship, routine, uh, sometimes domestic, um, shared. For example, you have a pet with someone, that's a type of relationship, even if you don't have a romantic anymore, whatever. Sorry for the long list. Just trying to share what type of relationship we actually have. And in those relationships, we can have, I think, love, or I don't know what you want to consider love in this matter, but I think we can have various types of love. So bearing with me, it's just a bit longer because I think I lost myself again. Sorry, I drank coffee and I was anxious. This was not the best mix. So yeah, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, I wrote it down here because when you were putting the lines, um, you were talking about you have experience with this one, and when you break up, and then you have experience with another one, and you break up. And one thing that it shifted my mind was when in this course when we were talking about, and the person who was giving the course said it changed her mindset when she stopped thinking about a relationship that breaks up, but a relationships that shifts to another type of relationship, like romantic, to shifting to friends, or this is really basic friends, but okay, uh, some other type of relationship, and it eases the emotional growth, I think. And okay, going back about experience, we I think the way we grow, it's really inside, about not the really physical experience we have, but the maturity in our head to the immaterial, non-material stuff, like organizing, and you can learn, for example, about seeing the world, and the type of, okay, this is going to be very academic, but the more I learn about power at university, the more I would link into human relationships, and then I started try to figure out a lot of stuff. So my experience about this was not by experience with people romantic relationships, and yeah, so theoretically, I think we can grow and try to apply that on the future relationship, I think. So going back to alpaca, yeah, uh, my memory. Ugh. We don't have. We can be with someone that is less experienced if that person is open to grow inside in their personal life, and to also be open to see a future that can be plastic, you know. So yeah, sorry if this is
Yeah,
I
all
don't know
right.
if you heard.
So wait, do you think that they're fundamentally different types of love, or is a basic human need sort of expressed in different types of relationships? So is it the same love, but in is love one, and then you sort of
This is
practice it differently, or is it there, or are there fundamentally different types of love?
um I think the love is okay. You have the love and then you have the different relationships. I'm not sure yet. Let me just give you uh 2 seconds on this. Okay. Can you repeat the question just to
So is
make
there
myself?
like one love, and
Yeah.
then we
Oh,
just express and practice this fundamentally same drive in different relationships, or are there different types of love that can never that don't come from the same stream? So let me
okay. Okay. I think I can answer with that. So I think I can put an analogy about this. Imagine as a color, and then we have different types of colors. See, and the society made us believe that we just see black and white, friends or love, romantic love, and that's why we always feel like, oh, but there's one type of love and there's none. No. So yeah, I think there's love like the emotion, and then you have all kinds of shapes and colors and textures. So yeah,
so you believe it's sort of like light hitting a prism and then shifting and sort of spreading into different wavelengths.
yes.
Okay, I think that I feel it. I feel it's that way as well. I mean, I think
Mm,
that the prism is society, and what society teaches us we can feel, we start feeling, and what society teaches us we can't feel, we will feel is not existent or wrong. But I would like to go back to Succubus's the sentence I have issues with. So fundamentally, what I hear when you're telling me of alternatives towards the zipper uh, experience gathering is that we don't have to learn things by experiencing them. We can just like uh, transfer knowledge from one to another without having to personally, feel it on our skins. Is that sort of in a nutshell what you were saying, Succubus?
What?
So when you said that well, when you mentioned your friends teaching you about things, and then later on said that your parents can instill values into you that will make you, like, follow a good course, you're basically saying
Hmm.
that knowledge can be transferred and you don't have to feel everything on your skin and learn it personally to know it, right?
What? I'm sorry. Can you repeat just the last part after the
So,
parents teaching us values?
so instead of experiencing things, we can also learn from knowledge transfer.
Exactly, just like school.
Yeah. Okay. Do you see a difference between these types of learning?
Yeah, there's bunches of types of learning, but in the end, it's still learning. I don't have to date 10 people to know to grow as a person. I can do that myself, and everyone can do that themselves. Maturity, whether it is sexual or development of personality, development of tastes and opinions, and empathy. I don't need to learn because what is fucked up with the experience from partners is everyone is different, and what you teach me may not work with someone else. So if I'm not learning things myself, for my personal growth, if I'm learning about you and shaping me around you when I go into another relationship, it's going to clash and it's going to be fucked up.
Yeah, but okay, I can use the exact same argument when you tell me that your parents can teach you something. The same thing a parent can teach you can clash later when you go into the real world.
Self worth? Yeah, it's gonna question
I
if
don't know what you
someone
mean by
doesn't think I'm
self-worth.
worthy.
I mean, a self-worth is basically uh, a value.
Exactly.
I know, but I mean, we can go into a whole separate discussion on what self-worth actually means. I don't want to go. I wanted to say. I wanted to. I remember the metaphor. It's an experiment done that was done. I forgot for what purpose, but the idea was you had these little vases and the pottery class, and one group was instructed to for a couple of weeks uh, just build vases. You make one, it's your first one, so it's really shitty, probably. Then you build another one, and so on. And after a couple of weeks, they made their ultimate vase that went on to be examined and sort of marked for the final grade or something. And then the other group was instructed to sit down and study the how to make the perfect vase. And during the same time period, they didn't make vases. They just planned how to make the perfect vase, and ultimately they make their own vase. Yeah. Now, when these two groups made their final vases, and when these vases were examined and marked, the higher mark usually went to the ones that didn't spend a lot of time planning it without doing it, but instead practiced until they got the final one. And this is sort of how I feel relationships work. Rather than trying to figure out a universal truth from the beginning, you can just, pick up on nuggets of a universal truth on the way, and then hopefully by the time you want to settle down with fewer or one people, you will have the perfect vase, which will have been built off of personal experience where possible, instead of a lot of theoretical knowledge that's not put into practice. Does that make sense?
I have
Yes, but it doesn't apply to everyone. It's
I have
not just that.
sorry, continue. Sorry, I was interrupted.
No,
What
no, no, I stopped you.
what do you
Go
mean it
ahead.
doesn't apply to everyone? Everyone or
Let me give you
everything?
an example. Let me give you an example. I am where I am today, and I've learned what I've learned today because of me. She didn't teach me poly. She taught me to be mono and to be clean and pure and a virgin, all that shit. But that's not what I get. But that's not the only thing she taught me. She taught me empathy and respect and values that had nothing to do with poly, but I took it that way. That's how I took it.
Think
But then you
I think
just
there's a third hypothesis here. It's accept this experience as two types, and we need the two types, and that's the reality. So we can't go making vases indiscriminately without the respect, as you were talking about, and the value. Um, because if we do this, we are screwing up a lot of people along the way, and we can we it's not a concept. It's not good either to just stuck in our houses watching K dramas and romance, and then thinking that we can make a good base in the end. Because we are not. For me, what we should, it's like learn when we can. That's in a young age with the values, and still learning, and then have those experiences. These are two valid types of experience, and I believe we can really value about non-practical experience, because then we are getting like ready for, okay, this water is warm, so I'm getting ready. Maybe cold is fair. Okay, this water is cold because it's from the ocean. I'm getting myself mentally ready, and when I get in, maybe it's not that much of a shock because I was prepared. So we need these two to get along, or else we gonna have a thermic shock when we get in a relationship, or we have a mind all fucked up because we are not prepared to go in a relation with someone. It's gonna
Of
be
course, you should not
hell
go
heck.
into relationships when you're not ready for them. But
No,
what you
I'm not saying it normative way. I'm saying that really of some things that we don't see on TV. Now we see more. But like mental health, self love, all that shit that we came from a generation, I think, that didn't talk much about it, and we should value that and bring that to the relation.
Sure, I agree completely with that last. Well, mostly everything. But at first, like at some point, you said uh, we can fuck a lot of people up by just going and making vases, and therefore learning through experience. I don't like the approach that any relationship that ultimately changes form or breaks up has to leave people
Neither.
fucked up. I
Hmm.
think that this is not so much the
I'm
product of
putting
having more
the
relationships, but rather how you handle. And of course, the first vase, metaphorical vase, you might drop and you might break, but this can happen regardless of what kind of relationship it is. Like you can hurt a friend, you can hurt a family member, you can hurt a pet, you can hurt your, I don't know, toothbrush when it's a first. So I don't think that by refraining yourself from having, genuine experiences, just so you don't fuck things up, you're saving anybody.
and no, I'm saying that there's a third hypothesis. Hypothesis.
Yeah, of course, a mixture of these.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that
that's
you
fine.
should always, test everything on your skin. Do humans die if you jump in a volcano? I don't know. Let's find out. It's not
Not
something that I
testing that
need
out.
confirmation of, but I'm aware also that, uh, as in the example of the pottery example, not everything is theoretical knowledge. Sometimes, you need to get it. Sometimes it's about technique. Sometimes it's about building your opinions. So we can, without having all this whole discussion, just read the final answer in a book. And depending on which book you read, you might find that this is a wrong approach to love, or that this is a hedonist type of life. You should read everything from the one book. There's only one true love, and everything else is admiration. Or I don't know what else you can read, depending on what you choose as your parent. You can have theoretical knowledge which, without having the possibility to question, you will just pick up and further uh, enforce later. And I would argue that a critical mind and the competence to be critical of what you learn theoretically comes from practice, comes from making a lot of these vases, so that finally, when you have a vase, you can see through its bullshit if it tries to bullshit you. I don't agree that just because your mama teaches you to value yourself, you will know, I don't know, a manipulative boyfriend when you stumble upon one.